the free, where no one should go hungry. We need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park. Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gornoski. So glad to be with you again across FM and AM, coming to you live on aneighborschoice.com. Make sure you go to aneighborschoice.com. If you miss an episode on radio or wherever you're finding us, you always go to aneighborschoice.com, where you'll have all of our content available for you 24/7, where we're going to unlock the news like nobody else does. That's because we're guided by personhood, not tribalism, in the way we analyze the news. Meanwhile, you look at what's going on in the Post-and-Courier.com of Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. They have a video of these view of 28 desk classroom with plexiglass barriers in a Horry County Schools elementary. I mean, imagine the stupidity of adults. Imagine how dumb an adult has to be to put plexiglass all around a child as they educate, as they learn, surrounded like they're in the same kind of plexiglass prison that, Julian Assange, someone who exposed horrible abuse of our liberties, abuse of state power and foreign policy situations that needed to be exposed. Julian Assange, he gets put in the same plexiglass stuff when he goes to prison or goes to trial, right? Looks very similar to what I see here in this classroom, these classrooms in Myrtle Beach, where the children in elementary school are asked to sit there behind the same plexiglass that usually they reserve that for truth tellers who challenge decadent corporate fascists and their war machines. But now young elementary kids have to be subjected to this, even though it's just pure hysteria, it's pure nonsense, it's pure insanity. Pure fear-mongering. Adults should know better. But where are the adults in the room? Where are the adults in the room? Too busy hiding behind plexiglass to tell kids, hey, it's okay to come outside of the plexiglass. We know we're treating you the way we treat our whistleblowers that expose empire. But we've done wrong. We're going to get you out of that plexiglass and let you have your childhood. No, the adults are too cowardly, too stupid, too mind-numbingly pathetic that they allow these children to sit behind plexiglass all around them, all around them like little nanny state losers. These teachers, it's not the teachers, it's the whole system, right? But I'm so tired of everybody saying, I'm just doing my job. I understand that to a certain degree. I understand it's hard to get a job in some cases because of how much government has ruined everything with their protection of regulations to protect corporate interests, that it's hard for jobs to be created. It's hard for creative destruction to clean out bad companies out of the market. I get it. But at some point, you have to understand that just doing my job, ma'am, is not a good excuse for going along with stupidity. I can't imagine how I would have to numb my conscience and tell elementary kids, put your mask on, stay away from your friend, don't look at them. It'll travel by eyesight. Put a plexiglass around them like they're a Julian Assange whistleblower, headed for prison. I don't know how much you got to pay me to do that. That's pathetic, you know? And I'm tired of making excuses for these people. I'm just doing my job. Okay, you're doing your job. And what is your job? To ruin the experience of children's life. That's what they're telling you to do. And just because somebody in authority told you to do something doesn't make it right. But this is the lemming situation we have with folks around us. If the authority tells me to do it, I'll do stupid stuff and hurt kids psychologically for years. Putting that hand sanitizer, do you know what that stuff does to people? You put that hand sanitizer on your skin all the time and it gets absorbed in your liver and stuff. Go look up what hand sanitizer does. And they're doing that to perfectly healthy young kids who don't even have a risk of having a bad disease outcome with this coronavirus, this gain of function malfeasance, right? This malfunction of gain of function lab, right? Oh, who knows where it came from? It cannot have come from the Wuhan lab, of course. Never could have happened. Never in a million years could that have happened. Why? Because a junk, trash media outlet like CBS tells you it's not, okay? Until they tell you that it happened there, don't ever even think in a million years that virus had anything to do with the Wuhan lab. Meanwhile, you're just going to do your job and tell little kids to stay 6 feet apart, put their mask on where you can't frickin' breathe, you can't get fresh air or freedom that was your air to breathe. They don't own the air. It's just bullying. You know, when you look at the way society is, it's just bullying. It's just all these elaborate attempts to bully people because people are miserable and they want to bully other people until they become miserable too. You know, you can't go anywhere without people wanting to spread their misery onto you. And this pandemic and the political stupidity that surrounds it has been the best thing ever for miserable people to bully happy, innocent people. And they expect for people to not fight back in terms of intellectually demolishing their stupidity. They expect people to not stand up. But we will stand up. Because we're not going to put up with this nonsense. You know, you see these people. I saw a story, I think it was in the Washington Post, talking about the rise of extremism, you know, online extremism. And it was talking about a guy who, I guess he had a YouTube channel where he used to talk about, you know, normal stuff like skateboarding, aliens, and video games. And then the Washington Post story said now he's turned to extremist stuff like the fact that mandates for masks are an assault on personal liberty. And I thought, well, good gravy. That's extremist now, and that's what they want to tell people, that you need to be suspected now. You need to be watched. If you say people, you can't even have an opinion. These people are fascists. They are un-American, and they're doing everything they can to destroy the foundation of protection of individual liberties that have been the safeguard and the vanguard of every minority interest since the dawn of time, whenever somebody thought of the first idea of having personal freedom, personal liberty. And these people want to totally destroy and rewrite history with their conspiracy theories. Math is a problem now. Shakespeare's a problem. The sky is a problem. Gravity is a problem. The color blue is a problem. The color green is a problem. You know? Freedom is a problem for these people. Oxygen's a problem for these losers. These people can't stand reality and they want to make us all miserable. But they're not going to get their way if we don't let them rob us of our joy. You can get upset, but you got to let it pass through, right? You get that anger, let it happen. It's okay. It's natural. You shouldn't feel ashamed of anger. When people are bullying little kids and putting them in plexiglass cages for frickin' garbage education slop, or putting them in a Zoom video garbage, and they're getting extremely wealthy with all the little middlemen and middle people who make money off of this educational decadence. Everybody wants to sit on Zoom and do nothing. There needs to be a mass exodus out of government schooling, by the way. But when people are bullying people that can't fight back, it's okay to get mad. But you don't stay mad. You have to channel that madness, right? Anger. You channel that anger into positive change. Channel it, transmute it. Don't let it, don't stew in it. It'll cook you. Don't stew in the anger. Transform it into positive change. Transform it into impetus to improve your life, your family's life, and the life of others around you. Don't let that anger cling on to you. Let it pass through you. Let it transmute into proactive excitement and joy. Joy to know that you're in no different situation than most people in the dawn of time, that there's always been petty tyrants and losers and bullies. There's always been hateful, annoying crowds that get lost in groupthink stupidity. So there's nothing new under the sun. Don't let the feeling, oh my goodness, all these little tyrant wannabes coming out of the woodwork, I just can't take it. What are we going to do? The sky is falling. It's like, no. The sky is exactly where it's always been. This is just what human beings do when you let them fall into crowds, which has been happening since the dawn of time. They do stupid stuff, and then they tell you it's just my job or some expert told me, and you're like, what are you saying? You're just blabbering. They say the word science, but that is just a blabber word. They don't even know what science is. They don't know what the immune system is. They can't talk to you about seed oils. I talk about it all the time because I'm not going to let these losers cloud the conversation up with their misinformation, their pseudoscience nonsense. Putting masks on kids and wrapping around with plexiglass to go to school. And that's in Myrtle Beach. What do you think they're doing over in the hellhole that is California and New York? I don't even want to think about that. You got these little corporate little muppets over there with sycophantic press, not a single soul with guts, it appears, in the media to challenge these losers. I guess the New York Post is doing a little bit of something with Cuomo. Finally, somebody, the only outlet that gets banned off of Twitter for daring to report about the Biden's criminal engagement with other countries for personal profit at your expense. The New York Post is the same outlet that's blown the whistle on what Cuomo's been doing in New York, hurting the least of these. You know, we're judged by how we treat orphans and widows. We're judged by how we treat, innocent kids and elderly people. And by that metric alone, these wannabe nanny state narcissists have failed on every conceivable metric of that. They have terrorized kids. They've terrorized them to put masks on and stay away from people. And you can tell them to your blue in the face, this virus is not showing any evidence of harming the kids, and it doesn't matter. And this mask is not going to help. Doesn't matter. These people are miserable, and they want to spread misery to other people. And there's a certain thing about human nature that happens, especially in times of crisis. That's why I keep telling you over and over again, we've got to grow the pie. If the pie of wealth doesn't grow, it's going to enhance this zealous, tribalistic nonsense, this loss of self-awareness, this loss of self-sense, dignity, and love for liberty. It's going to continually erode if we don't grow the pie of wealth. And the only way we can grow the pie of wealth is to put skin in the game and innovate in the world of physical materials, in the world of science and medicine, energy and transportation, all the things that are the foundational sticking points for human conflict and tragedy at the base level. People don't want to get sick. They don't want to be polluted. They don't want to be without the ability to have energy, because that's the lifeblood of the economy and the things that they buy, the bills that they pay. So you solve those problems and you can alleviate the effects of scarcity. You can alleviate the effects of the zero-sum mentality that becomes very, very difficult to pull people away from in times of scarcity. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski. We'll take a break in just a moment. Email me hello@aneighborschoice.com or drop a comment on our live stream. is your neighbor. Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved two people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com. Hello, this is David Gornoski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
A lot has happened that has prevented us from feeling like a community. Well, now that things have opened up a bit, let's get back to basics. As a foundation for our neighbors and family, God is a big part of bringing us together. It's time to get back to church. Uplifting, supporting, and loving neighbors that are cherished, not only now, but for eternity. Come on, you can use it. The Welcoming Committee is there every Sunday. See you soon.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski, your host here. We're live on radio, podcast, video stream, aneighborschoice.com. You can email me, hello@aneighborschoice.com, to interact with us or drop us a comment. One commenter on YouTube says, would be a lot easier to grow the pie if 90% of the wealth wasn't being siphoned by our overlords. Well, they're not my overlords, but I understand your feelings. But that's a common thought, right? A lot of people think that. And I understand where they're coming from. It is difficult to start a business. I talk about all the time how difficult it is to go through occupational licensure procedures, which are just put in place to protect cronyism, how difficult it is to go through regulations and to compete with giant corporations that wrote the very regulations that you're supposed to comply with, but it's very difficult to do so. All these things are done in the name of protecting victims, protecting the consumer, but in reality, they're not doing anything of the such. They're actually doing everything to just entrench crony capitalist power, right? So I understand how difficult it is. I really do. But at the end of the day, wealth isn't going to be measured in that way. Wealth is when you change the framework of what's actually real. When you say, you know what, like look at Nikola Tesla, right? At some point, he came in there and said, hey, let's have alternating current. He didn't wait for people to overthrow the overlords. He just got it done. Now, does that mean that that it's easy? Does that mean that the overlords or whoever, the crony capitalists is an accurate term, right? Does that mean that they're just going to make it easy for you to create radical innovations? No. But in the age of decentralization in terms of media and information, and in the hunger for things like, clean energy, 24/7 energy panels, low temperature nuclear reaction, these technologies need to be developed. They need to be understood. And I believe that if you had enough people get behind these things and fund these things, and enough media outlets, even if it's independent media outlets, promote these inventors, promote these investigations, promote these technologies, that it would create a contagious wildfire of true, clean energy revolution, possibly to the point where eventually we could get to energy too cheap to measure and meter, right? And that's what we have to do. The same commenter said, yeah, for sure, I'm all for it. Innovation is the way, but it must be fostered. Well, that's right. That's what we're doing right now. How many radio programs are talking about low temperature nuclear energy and applying it to the news headlines of today and current events? It's not really something people do a lot. We have to cultivate the mindset we want. And that means starting from first principles, getting people to understand how we should be wary of falling prey to hysteria, falling prey to conformity, falling prey to laziness and apathy and fear. Oh, I can't do anything great. They've all got the money. No, they don't all have the money. They're nothing. They mean nothing. 2,000 years from now, people will still be talking about Jesus, and no one will remember any of these stupid overlords that you're so worried about today. Nobody remembers Pontius Pilate as a serious problem today. People don't remember these. They remember these as gnats in history. Look at the big picture. Look who's moving history. Who will be sung about 2,000 years from now? It'll be Jesus. Nobody remember Bill Gates. Nobody cares. You have to have a big picture view to understand what's happening. Bill Gates, it will be a footnote, a bloated vegan footnote or whatever, eating plant-based fungal matter in his mouth. No one cares. Like, what, he used a stupid Microsoft word. Great. Thank you. Next page. Nobody cares. But they'll still be singing about Jesus 2,000 years from now, 3,000 years from now, 4,000 years from now, 5,000 years from now. They'll keep singing about Jesus because he's the kind of person that changes the world. So let's imitate the master. Let's imitate the guy who actually gets things done and makes you sing about him. Nobody's going to sing about Bill Gates ever. So he looks powerful because we're looking in a short-term view. In a short-term little ant's perspective, it's like, yeah, that guy looks big. It doesn't matter in the big stage. Look at where the real players are. Look at where the real players are that change history. The ones who change history are the ones who imitate the nonviolence and beauty and the radical love for their neighbor that Jesus does. It's the whole thing. You can't have love for your neighbor with coercion. You can't have respect for personhood with coercion. You can't have beauty with coercion. It has to be all together. And that's why Jesus' role model has inspired the greatest scientific discoveries, the greatest hospital inventions, the greatest cathedrals, the greatest architecture. And these losers who want to play God, they will be footnotes at best. Nobody cares about them. Keep our eyes on the prize. Look at what we can do if we're inspired by proper role models. And then get to work. It's a very simple formula. They tell you there's no formula, and I understand the point, but there kind of is a formula. It's called have epistemological humility. Be suspicious of sacred cows that people say, oh, you can't touch this. Physics is settled on what an electron is. And it's like, no, it's not. Sorry. Doesn't matter if you worship those heroes that told you it was a settled matter. It's not. Sorry. You don't define reality. The doers will define reality. Back in a moment. Take a quick news break. Let's hear what the state has to say through their media outlet, ABC.
Ronald Reagan will turn over in his grave if he saw what's going on today.
Crazy things are happening.
You cannot be afraid. You've got to stand up for what you believe is right.
But one thing is for sure.
You can't trust anybody.
For talk, news, and information, you can count on us.
Enough is enough. I mean, I almost blew a gasket.
Good for the country.
I know what I'm talking about. A lot of wackos out there.
Your connection to talk about it. The all-new News Talk 1040 WHP.
California, one of the hardest hit in this prolonged pandemic with the highest death toll. Today, 2 federally run vaccination sites opened, with the military stepping in to help ramp up vaccinations. ABC's Alex Stone is in East LA.
Lane after lane, cars are pulling up, the window goes down, and a shot goes into the arm. The goal being 6,000 doses of vaccine given at this site every day. Governor Gavin Newsom opening the mass vaccination site.
This site will be replicated not just in other parts of our state, but all across the rest of the country.
The human power here is coming from active duty military in their camouflage uniforms, giving the shots. They came from Fort Carson in Colorado. Alex Stone, ABC News in East LA.
President Biden heading to Wisconsin later today for a town hall. Tonight, talking to Americans, trying to sell his COVID-19 rescue package. And winter storms affecting much of the country in one shape or form. In Texas, millions without power after record low temperatures tax the grid. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
So we heard from the state media, ABC, they said they're excited about what Governor Newsom's doing, using the military to do what, drive-through COVID shots? I don't even know what they're talking about, but they got the military doing it for them. They're really excited. You know, Trump was pushing the military too. So this is a bipartisan victory for, the merger of state and medical science, which has been a great beauty of a wonder, right? I mean, you look back at the history of so-called establishment paradigms of medicine, and it's just an embarrassing joke. You got people in allopathic medicine putting mercury in people to help people, you do bloodletting, getting blood out of get the blood out, all this stuff. And then they put mercury in. And these are the people that were supposed to be the established understanding of truth and science, So that's what they talk about. They elevate stupidity. My great-grandfather said the folly of man is the beginning of truth. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. The older I get, I totally agree that it's the beginning of truth. That the foolishness of man is where you really see that the best stuff doesn't rise to the top. It doesn't rise to the top in a lot of ways because so much of our society is mediated by preemptive violence, by coercion. Merit can rise to the top when you don't have preemptive coercion introduced into the mix. Do you see what I mean? I don't care whether you're a libertarian, a nationalist, a conservative, or moderate, or progressive, a communist, whatever it is. I don't care what your little tribe is. This is a fact of reality. If you introduce coercion, if you introduce preemptive violence, same thing. If you introduce that into the mix of human beings, it will not bring out the best merit to the top of industry and science and knowledge and nutrition and health and energy and all the good stuff that we should be progressing on. No, it brings out dumb stuff. It brings out stupidity, where news reports are talking about what some Luddite like Gavin Newsom's doing. Nobody cares what Gavin Newsom's doing. He couldn't even tell you anything about science. He doesn't know anything about mitochondria. Ask Gavin Newsom what a mitochondria does, right? Mitochondria. Ask him what mitochondria does in the cell. He can't tell you nothing. Not even on a basic level, probably. Dude couldn't tell you a thing to save his life. Okay? But that's who Luddites get the praise and glory of media in an environment in which we are addicted to preemptive violence and coercion, which is what we call monopoly statism. When you introduce preemptive violence and coercion into the mix of human nature, it will retard our ability to move forward. It is that simple. You don't have to come up with some fancy new ideology to explain this. Okay? It's not that hard. If you introduce preemptive violence into energy, then you're going to get stupid outcomes for energy innovation. If you introduce preemptive violence and coercion into medical breakthroughs and medical research and medical understanding, you're going to get retardation of knowledge. It's going to slow down and really muck up the ability for human beings to use merit and success and truth and rigor and reality. You can't do those things as well when you have monopolies who use coercion and preemptive violence to get things done. But that's what human beings worship. That's what Jesus was challenging in his life. People make it all about this theological, metaphysical stuff. It's not. It's very simple. He's trying to help people see that if you introduce preemptive violence and coercion into the formula of human nature, it's going to really screw people over big time. It's going to mess everything up. And that's why people are afraid to challenge physics. We don't do that. We do that every week. My show, you know what? Look, airtime, all this stuff is expensive. I have spent, 3 years now, every week doing a Science in You segment on Thursday. And I know that it probably turns off some people. And it probably turns on, some people turn on the show just to hear the physics segment on Thursdays, right? I know that. Do you think this is a get rich quick scheme if I put on extremely, difficult or dry subjects for people, for the masses, like physics? Oh, that's going to get me really going really quick. That's going to get me the special, thing. No, we try to make it as engaging and simple and understanding for all of us. I'm not a physics expert. I'm not a physicist, right? But I do that so I can show you instead of just telling you about the problem. Because if you listen to talk radio and all this other conservative Inc. media stuff, all you hear is the problem. The Democrats are doing the Democrats. It's like, what the freaking heck do you want people to do with that? You are keeping people in such a low resolution state of being in which the only thing they have to feel, even when they go to someone who's a so-called truth teller, is just how bad and wrong everything is. But I don't want to leave you there. And so I'm doing this for the future. I don't care if 2 people understand the physics or like the physics that we talk about on Thursdays. I will do it because in the future, it will be used by people who get it. That's the exciting thing. You just let the truth out and the truth will take care of itself. That's what St. Augustine said. You don't have to defend the truth. Just let it loose. It'll take care of itself. It's not about the tortoise and the hare deal. It's not about, okay, we got to come up with one political solution or one political hero who will save us from the corruption. No. That's a waste of time. That's a fool's game. And that props up the matrix of preemptive violence, right? Coercion's a big deal, They try to make it some kind of like esoteric libertarian thing. I don't care what they do to try to denigrate the concept of coercion, try to move it to the side. That's a small issue. Move it away. That's what people do on both left and right. It's extremely important because God made us to have free agency. And God made us out of free agency himself, right? He's a free agent. He makes us in the image of his free agency, and he gives us free agency. And so if you get that wrong in the way you deal with your neighbor, it's going to screw up everything. It's going to mutate and distort everything you try to do if you build a foundation that denies the reality of what human beings are. If you say, you know what, God gave me free agency, but I'm not going to give my neighbor free agency to use a drug or pay the wage that he wants to pay or do this job the way he wants to, as long as they're not using violence, if I'm not going to give my neighbor that free agency, dignity to fall on their face, then I am not treating my neighbor the way God treats me. And if I can't treat my neighbor the way God treats me, how can I complain when things go wrong? How can I complain when the world falls apart? It's very obvious. You have to have the foundations of human nature in mind before you start building a house of cards on top of a rotten foundation of coercion, preemptive violence. We will tell you what wage to pay. We will tell you what you will do. We will tell you how big your nails will be for your house and all these different things, on and on and on. And just like, anything that's twisted and dark, like preemptive violence is, it's always wrapped with the half-truth, because there are some good ideas that happen with regulations, but they are happening the wrong way. Everybody wants to have a safe home, but this illusion, this religious superstition that if we don't have a monopoly entity like government making rules about what a safe home looks like, somehow it'll be a chaotic thing. This is the same thing that you'll learn in anthropology about superstitious religion, archaic religion. We have to sacrifice some. We have to have a holy priesthood of hierarchy and taboos and prohibitions, and it has to be mediated with violence occasionally. And if we don't, we'll have chaos. And maybe that was true for a time because of where human beings were. But it's not true anymore because Jesus said it is finished. That way of doing coercion and might makes right and preemptive violence was done. It was defeated on the cross, and a new pathway opened up for human beings in history to use the proper free agency, not free agency in and of itself. That's where it goes wrong, right? Some types of libertarianism type stuff, which is why I don't subscribe to that ideology, but some types of libertarianism makes free agency in and of itself. That is all we're supposed to do. As if you can't make any normative claims about human beings how they should conduct their lives. You can only tell them don't use coercion against anybody, right? Don't initiate violence. But that's not enough, right? Because then that's not what Jesus sets an example. He doesn't just, when people ask Jesus for issues or deal with problems, he doesn't just say, figure it out, you're free to do it. Okay, he doesn't do that. He gives you challenging questions back to make you wrestle with things yourself, but he also models the right behavior, right? He models out the right behavior, the right posture, the right way how to think about things, not just what to think, but how to deal with these sacred cows that society presents to us. And he gets us to see it by examples, by living it out, by performing the art that is his life. Do you want to perform your life as art? Do you want to be someone who performs a life that is art? This looks like that. It looks like modeling out the embodiment of the best of life, of an abundant life, of a life that's not owned by fear and apathy and being afraid of what other people will think about you. Who cares? Life is so short. And we have such a limited time to really fully grasp it and really, get the marrow of it. And we shouldn't let these bullies and the fear of bullying and self-doubt rob us of the joy that we can have when we understand how good it is to pursue an excellent life, a risky excellence rather than a safe mediocrity. Jesus models risky excellence. There's a chance you could get killed or ostracized if you imitate Jesus, but you'll live an excellent life. It's risky, but it's excellent. Now, if you want to imitate the world's false idols, the masters, the wannabe masters that still play by the old playbook of might makes right and preemptive coercion, then you'll have safe mediocrity. Safe mediocrity. And it's really not even that safe because it's usually going to get you eating junk food and garbage seed oils and thinking you're doing something healthy because the label says plant-based. You'll have safe mediocrity in the way you think about energy. You'll have safe mediocrity in the way you deal with tensions between communities and heal relationships that go back generations with dispute. Safe mediocrity actually leads to unsafe failure, but it feels safe in the moment, and it's kind of mediocre, right? In the moment. But at the end of the day, it leads to unsafe failure. So let's choose risky excellence, the way Jesus models risky excellence when he deals with conflict. You think he didn't deal with overlords? You think he didn't deal with cheats and liars and fake news? You think he didn't deal with hypocrites? He's the guy that gave you the word hypocrite the way we use it so much today. A lot of that comes from the way he uses it in the New Testament, in the common parlance of the word. He dealt with all the same things we dealt with. And 2,000 years later, people still sing his name. Even when they get his ideas wrong, they're still perplexed and mesmerized. They're still fascinated and haunted by one man's life. And people say, well, there's no way to know whether he was God or not. It's like, if he was a man, it's almost even, if he was only a man, it's almost even a greater miracle that one man could die and change the whole world in the level that he's done. That's a bigger miracle than to say that he's perhaps divine as well. We'll take a quick break and return after this short break. Hope you're enjoying the time. We'll try to get to some news stories as well. If you have any questions, send me your statement on YouTube live stream. We'll get to them, Facebook live stream, or email hello@aneighborschoice.com. David Gornoski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. Hello, this is David Gornoski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck on a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
You can't have a fresh outlook on the new year if you're staring through a chipped or cracked windshield. Autoglass America will fix it and give you up to $150 cash back to help pay holiday bills. With qualifying insurance, we'll come to you with mobile service and install a premium quality replacement with a lifetime warranty at no cost to you. Get a great outlook on the new year with a new windshield and New Year's cash from Autoglass America. 813-96-GLASS, 813-96-GLASS.
Hello, David Gornoski here. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. Our website's aneighborschoice.com. Hey, if you're listening on podcasts, write a review, share it, all that good stuff. That helps get to new people, get our audience out to new people. We love seeing all the folks that join us around the world. It's a truly exciting time. So exciting to see what we can do to make the world a more peaceful, nonviolent, beautiful, and exciting place to be. James says, I am a new listener. He's on YouTube, commented just now. I am a new listener. How do you start building this foundation of true principles and spread the message while mired in this machine of coercion? It feels like holding back a flood. But, people, generations lose their minds, right? But they don't have to spread that insanity to the next generation. And sometimes it takes a couple of generations to steer the ship of humanity back to a better place. And sometimes societies lose their minds in one particular region of the globe, but they recover it a little bit in another place, right? This is the ebb and flow. I understand today it's becoming more pernicious when they have this little global system. They're trying to build these busybody nanny state fascists. You look at some fool like Tony Blair, right? This guy, the level of respect he has for innocent human life because of how much he participated in lying us into the Iraq war. So we know what his level of concern for the sacredness of human life is. So what are we going to listen to this joker about how to protect innocent human life from a new virus by having some kind of health certificate passport? What a joke that anybody would take that. Okay, so what's your track record? Let's just take the one we can think of the most, because I don't know anything else Tony Blair has done. Maybe you can inform me. I've forgotten he even really existed until I saw his essay yesterday, right? Don't even know anything what that guy did. Just another politician in the way of progress, right? And he's over there, what's he known for? All I remember him for is being the guy who, with George W. Bush, was selling us in to the idea that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and therefore we needed to have a presence in there, right? And how did that work out? Became a breeding ground for Al-Qaeda and all this chaos. Became a power place for groups allied with Iran, which they said they were trying to have a check against at some point. So stupid. And then all the people who lost their lives, limbs, severe burns. I mean, imagine living with severe burns because George W. Bush and Tony Blair didn't think about human life and how sacred it is before they sent everybody off to do a regime change war. So that's something to consider when you think about listening to people like him as they tell us, oh, this is the humane thing to do. We need to come up with a health certificate that'll be a global system to tell people what your vaccine papers tell you, which drugs you had. Did you have your 50th COVID vaccine or your 10,000th, whatever? I don't care if it's vitamin D3 or Flintstone vitamins. I don't care what it is. They have no business acting like little fascist nanny state wannabes, and they have no business trying to act like they have the moral high ground. They have a record of having disregard for human life, disregard for oppressed communities like the people of Iraq, disregard for the consequences of their grandiose ideas for the world. But back to your point, James, how do you start building this foundation of true principles and spread the message while mired in the machine of coercion? It feels like holding back a flood. Well, it happens. You can take care of yourself, right? You take care of yourself. How can you love your neighbor if you don't love yourself? So whatever it is you're passionate about, let's take, for example, health. Health. You're concerned about healthcare. Maybe you're a communist and you say, I want to have government health care. Bernie Sanders said he'll give me government health care. It's like, okay, do you know what health is? Do you know what allopathic medicine is? Do you know the good strengths and the weaknesses? Do you understand this stuff? Or are you just reacting to stimulus? See, these people that like Bernie Sanders healthcare takeovers, they're neo-reactionaries. They just react instead of actually coming back to holistic first principles and understanding, okay, how can we actually deal with these diseases? Maybe we don't need, because the whole argument behind these communist arguments for universal healthcare, it's not really going to be communist. It's going to be a corporatist, big government, big business merger. But I'm just trying to give them the benefit of the doubt at this moment. They say they're socialists, so let's call them socialists just for the moment. The whole point about it is that, it's too costly for people to afford these prescription drugs without having, it's expensive, especially if you have a pre-existing condition and healthcare is too costly and all this stuff. It's like, well, this is caused by government intervention. But if you could understand the foundations of health, perhaps it would get you to see that there's ways to look at mitochondria that would allow you to solve these problems without even needing any prescription drugs, which means you wouldn't, or very little expensive. Maybe you could find inexpensive drugs. Look at what I've showed to you, Dr. Michael P. Lasanti, who's one of the world's most cited oncology. He's one of the world's most cited scholars, period, according to Google Scholar itself. So that's an establishment-friendly site, right? And he says azithromycin and doxycycline have a tremendous potential for dealing with cancer stem cells. And those are non-toxic, readily available generic antibiotics. So first of all, take care of yourself. So if you care about health, don't be guzzling down seed oils. I don't care if you're skinny. I don't care if you're muscular, whatever it is your body type is, don't be fooled by it. These things are not supposed to be consumed to the level that they're being consumed. So check your labels. That's a way to help yourself. Before you want to go off and be Bernie Sanders with your oven mittens, check your seed oils and make sure that you and the loved ones you know are not eating this garbage. That's a standard thing. Before we get into sugar and salt and all that stuff, just one thing, can you do that before you run off trying to change the whole world? This is similar to what Jordan Peterson says. Clean your room. Go check out my interview with Jordan Peterson. We talked about this stuff together. Clean your room, he says, before you want to take on the world. It's a good principle because it'll help you see whether the things that you think are the things that need to be changed are actually the things, if you're actually in the right direction. Once you actually put skin in the game and love yourself, then you'll know how to love your neighbor. You love your neighbor as yourself. You don't love your neighbor more than yourself or less than yourself. You love your neighbor as yourself, which means you have to have skin in the game before you go off and tell the world how it's supposed to be. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but it means you have to know what's true and then aim for it and go for it and get it enacted in your life. And as you do that, then you can start to say, okay, now how do we spread this word? Should I do a podcast? Should I do a radio show like David or whatever? Do it. You want to write an article? It's easy to write an article. That's a great way. If you're a good writer, write an article. Do a Substack. I can't keep up with all these sites they come up with. It's like, it's just so much stuff. There's so many opportunities to get your content out there, to get your message out there and help people one by one spread the message to their families and friends and change their life. But that's where we start. There's more to this. You've asked a great question, James. You've asked a great question. So I guess I'm out of time in this hour, but I'm going to keep going with this thought. Now, I want you to answer me a question, you folks listening right now who are interacting live. Do you want me to keep doing these deep dive discussions, or do you want me to look at the news? Do you want me to look at some articles and riff off of that? I can do that because we have some articles in the queue to read and study and look at and queue off of and riff off of. Or we can keep diving into some of these questions you guys have. It's what you guys, give me your feedback and we'll see where it goes. I'm David Gornoski. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. You can email me, hello@aneighborschoice.com. We're going to dive into this. James, thanks for joining us. We're going to dive into this some more. Like, I'm not going to give you some cookie cutter answer. I'm going to give you probably more answers than you were expecting, probably that you didn't want, but that's just where we're going to go with this. So we'll try to pick this up in just a moment. Stay tuned for hour 2 of A Neighbor's Choice.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park, Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. Coronavirus cases are on the decline, but now there's a race to vaccinate as more contagious variants are identified in states. Americans like Fran Goldman going to great lengths just to get a shot. The 90-year-old walking 6 miles round trip through a rare winter storm in Seattle.
I don't think it was all that special. It was just it was the way I could do it. And so I did it.
That after waiting weeks just to get an appointment. The White House says it will be doubling the number of vaccines it sends to states in the coming weeks. And today in California, a potential game changer. The first federally run vaccination sites opened.
This is a model the military and FEMA hope to duplicate around the country. Active duty Army from Fort Carson in Colorado running this site with military precision. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti with a message to the men and women in camouflage here giving the shots.
As a veteran myself, I want to salute them. I want to thank them. I want to say you are the ones who are angels in the city of angels here today.
The goal here is 6,000 doses every day. Alex Stone, ABC News in East LA.
President Biden heading to Milwaukee, Wisconsin tonight, his first official trip since taking office. He'll be there for a town hall trying to sell his COVID-19 rescue package. And in Texas, some 4 million customers out of power due to record near-zero temperatures this past 24 hours, testing the power grid.
The search for warmth has been a godsend to hotels that have been slammed by the pandemic.
We're just running around looking for a hotel at this point, trying to get me and my kids out of the cold.
Many of the power outages are intentional as electric companies try to cut consumption to protect the larger grid. Governor Greg Abbott is calling for action.
The Texas legislature, which is in session right now, will be looking at that system to see if it needs some type of backup system.
Abbott says the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, the nonprofit corporation that operates the power grid, has been anything but reliable in the current crisis.
ABC's Jim Ryan. You're listening to ABC News.
Paid for by Asset Marketing Services, LLC.
Have you heard? A secret hoard of 1902 Morgan silver dollars has been found. These gorgeous 1902 O Morgans are as bright and shiny as the day they were struck, and less than 500 of these coins are available. Coin experts are calling the Great Southern Treasury Hoard an incredible opportunity. Just call govmint.com at 1-800-859-1518, and you're guaranteed a mint condition 1902 Morgan silver dollar featuring the iconic O Mint mark of the New Orleans Mint. These 119-year-old coins were found in sealed bags that have been untouched since 1902. That makes these unopened bags of Morgan silver dollars extremely rare. To learn more, call 1-800-859-1518. Call now and you'll receive a free American Coin Collector's Bonus Package, a $10 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-859-1518 now to secure your 1902 Morgan silver dollar coins before they sell out. That's 1-800-859-1518.
The Biden administration says it's outraged by a rocket attack in northern Iraq that killed an American contractor and wounded several service members. It's unclear who launched that attack. Iran has vowed revenge over the U.S. assassination last year of an Iranian general. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki today says the U.S. is working to determine who's responsible.
We offer our condolences to the loved ones of the civilian contractor killed. The Iraqi people have certainly suffered for far too long from this kind of violence and violation of their sovereignty.
A costly mistake and now no recourse for one of the nation's biggest banks.
This was a banking error of unprecedented proportions. Last year, Citibank was supposed to make an interest payment of about $8 million to a bunch of firms that loaned money to Revlon, the cosmetics company. Instead, Citibank ended up sending nearly $900 million to those lenders, and a federal judge has now ruled they can keep it, even though Citibank realized the error the next day. There's an exception in New York law that allows recipients of mistakenly sent funds to keep it under certain conditions. In good faith and with ample justification, the judge said the lenders thought the payments were intentionally sent. Aaron Katursky, ABC News, New York.
A NASA rover set to touch down on Mars this week. The spacecraft is scheduled to arrive Thursday Eve, ending its 7-month journey. It will search for signs of ancient life. This is ABC News.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but thought it would be too difficult? Then try Babbel. Babbel starts by teaching you words and phrases that gradually get more complex. Soon, you're practicing short conversations. So in 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking a new language in a few weeks. Babbel is built around real life. It teaches you practical conversations that you will actually use. Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free. Just text TRY to 64,000 to start learning a new language today. That's TRY to 64,000.
Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Who is your neighbor?
Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park. Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
I'm Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gornoski. So glad to be back with you all for our second hour of today's broadcast. If you're listening on podcast, it's great to have you. If you video stream, drop us a comment on YouTube or Facebook. It's where we do our live stream at this moment. And it's great to have all the discussions that we have on there. And we're going to get into some issues. We're going to pick up what James said, if you were listening in hour one, his question he asked, and some of the other comments that we have here too. I want to look at the news real quick just to check in on what's going on. Ex-Cuomo aide is top candidate to replace CNN's Zucker. This is according to NBC. So is that a news to you that the guy who is one of the biggest failures, someone who put elderly people in harm's way out of idiocy or whatever, is going to have this aide is going to be the top candidate to replace CNN's chief guy? I mean, chief deal. So that's strange. Or is it? We have another story here that the gas at one U.S. hub trading at $999. Last week it was $4. This is on Drudge Report, Yahoo. Bitcoin breaks $50,000. Food inflation deepens. Yeah, I wonder why. I wonder why food inflation deepens. Meanwhile, we've got this horrible freeze. Texas freeze is over. Millions still in dark. Hope everybody's doing okay there. It's doesn't look like a really comfortable place to be right now. You know, I don't understand the details of that, but it doesn't look safe. Then you've got the pandemic wars launch as they launched DeSantis, the governor of Florida, into the GOP top tier. They've got presidential chatter going on about DeSantis. So, anyways, that's just some of the news going on. We'll check in and out as that stuff continues. Let's go back to some of the comments and see what we can get to. James asked, I am a new listener. How do you start building this foundation of true principles and spread the message while mired in this machine of coercion? It feels like holding back a flood. So I said, first, you got to love yourself, because you don't know how to love your neighbor if you don't love yourself. So if you're going off telling your neighbor, hey, you need to vote for Bernie Sanders to give you free universal health care, but then you don't even know that the so-called free health care is just side effect riddled failed paradigms of managing symptoms rather than correcting and healing your health, then how in the world can you begin to even speak on a matter like that? You know, like, why are you even talking about, oh, let's go. I'm compassionate. I love poor people and I love, oppressed people because I'm a socialist. So therefore, let's go have universal health care because that will help people with their health. It'll help them care for their health. And it's like, well, no, that's not. Okay. There are some things that hospitals are good for, right? But dealing with chronic illnesses, which is the thing that most people seem to be most alarmed about when they demand nanny state government come and save them from healthcare problems. Most of those chronic illnesses were caused by single-payer nutrition science, and so you have to take care of yourself. It means because if you know that single-payer nutrition science is full of pseudoscience and nonsense, then you would stop doing the things that they're recommending that are wrong and take care of your life. And then you'd realize that most of the chronic illnesses and even mental issues, we've had Dr. Chris Palmer, MD, psychologist at Harvard, who is healing people of schizophrenia and depression and bipolar disorder and other things using therapeutic ketosis. Okay? So that's huge, right? How many people are depressed because they're in a plant-based diet? How many people are depressed because they're not getting enough minerals and ancestral foods in their body? I'm not saying you have to do one thing or the other. I'm just saying having the baseline right, avoiding seed oils, avoiding, industrial processed foods, flour, sugar, stuff like that is a good foundation. You can have apple pie without having all the toxic stuff. You can have good sugar. I'm talking about, think about what George Washington ate. I'm not saying they did everything right. I'm just saying, people back in those times, you could have your butter and your apples and your good, flours, generally speaking. You could have your cinnamon. And I'm not saying that's something people should eat either. I'm just saying it's not like you have to chew on raw spleen every day for the rest of your life to eat healthy and stay healthy. It doesn't have to be, extreme stuff the rest of your life. You can have cycling in and out of ketosis and so forth. But that's one example of just loving yourself before you go out trying to love your neighbor with coercive, stupid ideas. Check to make sure your ideas actually are working for your own health before you go tell people how to care for their health. So the next thing is I want to talk about is how do you spread the message when you have this machine of coercion all around us, right? How do you spread this message? And that's a great point. And here's what I've figured out so far. Is that human beings do not like facts and statistics that much. Some people do, right? But generally speaking, populations and cultures are not moved by just citing fact. Human beings, even the ones who say they're factual only, pure rationalists or whatever, they are ultimately moved by stories. Every rationalist, every, logician, every empiricist, whatever your favorite, type of category is for knowledge that you like to lean on, they all come back to a story that gives them the impetus to define themselves as whatever it is that they define themselves to be. And so story is what drives people. So we have to tell stories to get people to stop doing bad, dumb things, right? We don't like people putting, plexiglass around elementary kids, adults doing this because of a virus thing. We don't like unaccounted bureaucrats funding the Wuhan lab with our taxpayer dollars through a third-party company, EcoHealth Alliance, and then saying, hey, the same company that we gave the funding to give to the Wuhan lab, we're going to appoint their leader to do an investigation as to the origins of the Wuhan virus. This is stupid, right? This is insane that people with this level of a lack of accountability are the ones that we put in positions to do the things that they do. So you have to tell stories. You have to tell stories. You can tell fiction stories. You can tell make movies. You do audio books. You can write a children's book. You can do a puppet show. You can do performance art, right? Poetry, haiku, whatever it is, tell the story. Tell the story. Fiction, nonfiction. The way I do it, one way I do it, do a few different ways, but one way is what I call the gospel technology, which is imitating the way the gospel writers themselves tell the story of Jesus's wrongful persecution. So the gospels are texts There are texts that the communities were using and they were writing and they were engaging in and they were orally, performing them, in front of a crowd. And so these texts take on the voice of an individual from his perspective, going through his life, going through his performance of ethics and beauty and the things that he was bringing about, getting us to stop, being stuck in our tribalism, our self-righteous religions, and getting us to deconstruct ourselves even to the point where we learn to know that the things that we want are actually just things that other people want, that the choices we make are often just a neighbor's choice. So these things Jesus helps us see. And then he goes through this experience where he is thrown into this scapegoat ritual where he is accused of things. And the text says that enemies like Herod and Pilate, who had formerly been in conflict with one another, were unified by the persecution of Jesus. So it shows you that there is a kind of peace and unity that comes about when you exclude someone in the way that they are excluding Jesus. But the text also says that Jesus was innocent, that he was not deserving of the death that he received. He was not deserving of the isolation, the ostracization, the imprisonment, the lies, the slanders. He wasn't deserving of any of it, but that the people were actually blinded. And that's why Jesus is making an anthropological revelation when he says on the cross, "Forgive them, Father, they do not know what they're doing." He's not being quaint or cute there. He is giving you an anthropological revelation that we still can't see. We still don't understand that too much as a species. We think we know what we're doing, but we don't half the time. That's why people are putting plexiglass around little elementary kids. They're just mimetically following like parrots and doing the nonsense as part of this hive mind stupidity. And so Jesus is explaining to you right in front of you, they do not know what they're doing. He's telling you that as he's suffocating, okay? So we are being bullied by a lot of stuff in our time, but Jesus was suffocating. He's naked. He's got nails in his hands, in his wrists and his legs, right? He's got a crown of thorns and a mock human, in a kind of a mock kingly ritual, a sacrificial ritual that he voluntarily engages in so that you could see the sausage making of society. Write that down. He voluntarily engages in a wicked scapegoat ritual that the community engages in so that you can see the sausage making of society, so that you could understand the things that you're going through with your own government, your own corporate cronies, and all the other groupthink stuff that's built into bureaucratic science, bureaucratic business even, bureaucratic social life, even schoolyard conflicts, right? It's implications for everything. So he brings this out. He performs the scapegoat ritual so that you can see what was hidden under all mythologies before, and to some degree after, in the form of ideologies that justify build back better through sacrifice of some for the greater good. Right? So how can we perform the same thing that the Gospels are doing? The Gospels are a piece of media that are showing the perspective of a victim, of one against the many. Jesus is the persecuted one, the individual. The collective is preemptively initiating violence, just like they do when they go after the drug war and the war on education, war on poverty, war on terror, war on this, war on MAGA, war on whatever, all this stuff, right? Preemptively initiating violence here and there, surveilling people, tapping calls, doing this, trying to act like they're God. Saying that one people can threaten the White House with a mob and that's okay, CNN and everybody make a documentary celebrating it, but the other one, okay, now we're going to do a war on terror style, investigation of anybody who says that mask mandates are an attack against personal liberty. How did you get that way? You got that way because you don't know what you're doing. That Jesus said, we're lost in mimetic contagion, lost in a sea of imitation, of copying people and not knowing that we're copying. because we're arrogant. We think that we're gods. We think that we're so smarter than everybody. Oh, I don't have to imitate Jesus. I'm a rationalist. It's like, it's just stupid, you know? And so how do you perform the gospel? I want to show you this. So we have folks on, you know, people who get arrested, get thrown into conspiracy charges. They were dating somebody who was selling drugs. They were a friend of a friend who was moving drugs here or there. This friend sold this many drugs. That friend sold that many drugs. That friend sold that many drugs. That friend's cousin sold that many drugs. That friend's cousins sold that many drugs. And these conspiracy charges put all the drugs that they can count or even not count. And then they put it on you because you were friends with somebody and you helped them get the mail one time or something. And they put people away for life for nonviolent crimes like this, first time offense, right? So we tell the story by letting the person speak, letting them tell their story. What's your favorite food? What's your favorite movie? What were your dreams as a child? What did you want to do as a kid? What happened? Did you get caught up in the wrong crowd? What was it like in prison? What is it like in prison? We used to have people call in live to the show from prison before COVID stopped people from being able, they don't let people call out of prison now. So we'll pick this up, how to tell the victim stories in what I call the gospel technology way. We'll continue this in just a moment after this short break. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski. Hello, this is David Gornoski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
Do you despise lawyers? That may be the case until you need one. If you've been in an auto accident and need legal advice, go to the local attorneys that have served Tampa Bay families for over 28 years. Catania and Catania. They are family owned. They understand your legal situation. When you need legal representation, Catania and Catania will care for your case from the beginning to the end of representation. You won't need to worry. Catania and Catania will represent you through the entire process. Auto or motorcycle accidents are too frequent in Florida. Catania and Catania. They don't get paid if you don't get paid. Referrals on request. Contact Catania and Catania. Putting families first. Offices, Tampa. An attorney spokesperson.
Feeling lonely? You don't need to. There are friends in your community looking to be part of your life. Where are they? At your local church, of course. It's time to start getting back together for support, love, and friendship. There's no better place to do that than at your church. Make a plan this Sunday to be at one of the area's welcoming churches. You'll not regret it. The welcoming committee is there every Sunday. See you soon.
So you have to tell people stories. You have to tell the stories of people who have been victimized by unjust laws that persecute people with preemptive violence. When Caiaphas said before he was saying, you guys don't understand. It is better that one man die than the whole nation perish. And you might say to yourself, well, the minimum wage law is not, you're not being put to death. But it's social death, right? You're threatening people with putting them in a cage with violent people because they were allegedly stingy with wages or something, right? If the collective says, we will preemptively coerce you to pay $15 an hour, and if you don't, and if you resist us long enough, we're going to put you in a cage. So they preemptively initiate coercion by threatening you so that you submit. It's a shortcut to heaven that leads to hell. It's a heavenly idea to want to have people have a good wage, right? It's a heavenly idea, more importantly, for people to be without, want, to be able to have a dignified life, right? But it's a shortcut to heaven on earth that leads to hell on earth because it creates unintended consequences. It creates negative effects. And the same thing goes for something like a drug war. You say, hey, I don't want people to be addicted to drugs. But when you say, hey, we're going to preemptively use coercion to put people in cages for, selling this drug that alters your mind in this way, we do this because you could do violent things. You could get addicted. You could do things. Well, you can get addicted off of caffeine and go steal someone's. People get addicted to caffeine and they jump in and steal people's stuff all the time. They get drunk and they do violent things all the time, But just because something can lead to the occasion for violence doesn't mean you preemptively, coerce a nonviolent choice in and of itself, even if it's reckless. See, nonviolent doesn't mean good. You can do a lot of horrible, evil things that are not physically, violent to somebody else. But if you embrace this preemptive use of violence, like what the community was doing to Jesus, well, we're afraid, Caiaphas said, if we let this guy do what he's doing, he's going to stir up people, and the Romans are going to come after us. The Romans are going to come after us and destroy everything we've got going here. So let's take him out so the whole nation won't be destroyed. That logic, whereas it may not be as brutal as it used to be because Christianity has leavened the culture and desacralized this process and made us more repulsed by brutal, more overt forms of violence, but it still is a kind of social death. And it can lead to death when people get shot and killed for victimless crimes. A lot of the folks that have been killed in these situations that have triggered the BLM protests and riots have been killed because of nonviolent crime. So if we got rid of this preemptive use of coercion, it would save a lot of the social strife that is used to divide us and to tear us apart and tear families apart and tear lives apart. So how do you do that? You have to do just like the Gospels are a piece of media. So you use media, social media, blogging, writing a newspaper article, writing an editorial, doing a podcast, doing a radio show, doing a, online radio. There's all kinds of media that you can engage in that can allow you to give a platform to people who have, just like Jesus, been persecuted by preemptive violence by the collective. They're all around you. They may be in your family. They may be in your community. I know they're in your community. Our prisons are filled with people for victimless, nonviolent choices. And they are there for a psychological, social reason, because we like to have scapegoats over there so we can feel collectively better off because we're not them. We like to cast our personal indulgences that are often a little closer to what those people's indulgences are than we'd like to admit. We like to cast it all and quarantine it all on their backs and send them into prison labor making rape-resistant curtains for 16 cents an hour. That's actually what my friend Craig Cecil was tasked with doing when he was in prison for life for doing body work moving marijuana. Back in a moment.
There is all kinds of lunacy going on. The madness of 2020.
Weekdays 11 to 2.
I'm just so fed up with these Democrats. It's unbelievable.
Get it straight from Chris Plant.
They're so hypocritical. It makes me sick.
It's the Chris Plant Show.
This has just got me going on. And the left is waging war against the police in the United States.
Telling it like it is.
You should be thanked profusely for getting to the point. You're a voice of reason in the sea of idiots.
The Chris Plant Show. Weekdays 11 to 2. News Talk 1040 WHBO.
A FEMA mass COVID-19 vaccination site opening today in Los Angeles. California Governor Gavin Newsom.
This site will be replicated not just in other parts of our state, but all across the rest of the country over the course of the next number of weeks and the next number of months.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says the administration is boosting vaccine allocations to states to 13.5 million doses per week. That's up 57% from when President Biden took office. The president will soon be on his way on his first official trip, a town hall event in Milwaukee to pitch his American Rescue Plan. An Arctic blast has left more than 3 million Texans without power. Alexander Troop lives in Dallas.
We have all this food hoarded up in our place. We can't cook it. We have no gas in that building. We're electric.
A second storm now sweeping across the south is bringing more snow and ice to the region. Stocks closed mixed today. The Dow up 63 points. The Nasdaq down 48. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski, your host, broadcasting live, multimedia, FM, AM, radio, podcast, video stream, our website, aneighborschoice.com. If you click listen live, you can listen to the show live from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. And then we also have our Things Hidden podcast, which you'll want to look forward to. We've got 2 new episodes coming out probably this week. One with Donald Devine, who worked with Reagan, and he cut 100,000 jobs in the federal workforce back then in his first term. And we talked about Rene Girard, Donald Devine and I. He's in his 80s now, but he's been thinking about the intersection between economic liberty and traditional virtue, and how to keep those things in tension or keep those things going without going off the different directions that are not helpful. And then we also have a podcast I'll be releasing soon with Andrew Mcluhan, who's the grandson of Marshall Mcluhan. And, you know, Marshall Mcluhan was someone I studied when I was in university, studying communication theory. And I'm still a student trying to understand more and more from his perspective, because I think it has something to help us with, for example, what I'm talking about now in this segment, about this idea I call the gospel technology of using media technology or our lives or our voice or relationships as a way of allowing people to see the ugliness of things that they vote for and don't understand are bad and ugly. And then allowing people to see that the answer lies in personhood and respecting individual liberty and respecting people's dignity and having empathy with our neighbor. That comes about when we have effective storytelling. Again, whether it's fictionalized or nonfiction. I do nonfiction when we have guests come on the show who talk about their life and just let them speak. And as you hear their life story, and then you see the ugliness of what society does to people that you don't hear about, it has an effect of changing your heart so that you're less likely to go along in ignorance in the perpetuation of those laws. Whether you're sitting on a jury duty and you have the right to judge the morality of a law that's unjust and immoral and anti-human, or whether you're doing it in the voting booth, or whether you're doing it with your voice, you have a way to act on that revelation that pricks your conscience and tells you this is unjust to treat people this way. We have to find another way. And by the way, those conspiracy laws, they always end up getting the low members that are moving drugs on a petty level, or people who are just friends with them who weren't even really moving drugs, that they call ghost drugs. But the kingpins, they get to run free. The cartel kingpins, they're almost like recruiting prison labor for prisons to take advantage of, right? They don't ever get caught. The kingpins, usually they're not caught. But the very, very, very low level people moving drugs, they're the ones that get caught up, or people who knew them or dated a guy who did it. We had a lady on, Evelyn Boson Papa, who was 15 years old when she dated a Colombian drug cartel guy. She's stuck in life prison. She was just his girlfriend, basically, starting at the age of 15. He's free, I think, or maybe I don't know if he's in Colombia, but she's still stuck in a prison in our country for basically a life sentence. And so we have to tell those stories, and that has a way. So that's kind of my answer is, one, love your neighbor as you love yourself, meaning live out being debt-free, being PUFA-free, seed oil-free, right? It takes years to get seed oils out of our bodies. It takes years to stop eating it. It takes years to get that all, out of our system, because they stay in our bodies, especially if we've been eating them for years, starting with soy formula and stuff like that. And then, stay out of debt. That's loving yourself, loving your family. Especially if I'm talking about personal consumer debt, stay out of debt. Live within your means. Take care of your health, get good sleep. Enjoy life, get fresh air, have good, fun, social fellowship and laughter. That's the remedy. Don't allow people to steal your joy, right? Don't allow them to get you to think in a negative, mental loop. Because then, even if you know the right answers, but you're just stuck and paralyzed in apathy or fear or bitterness, that's robbing your beautiful life that you can live. The beauty of life is robbed because you're so focused on, what's wrong instead of what you can do in front of you and that you can affect. So one is that, love yourself and love your neighbor as yourself. Two is a media technology called gospel technology, where you tell the victim stories, tell the stories of people who are persecuted by collective preemptive violence. And three, which is kind of something that maybe seem a little bit more out of reach for some people, but it's not as much, which is, once people lose their appetite for collective violence, then they have the opportunity to then move towards nonviolent creative solutions to deal with the thing that the law was supposed to be dealing with, right? So we have laws that they're trying to put on to help us have more clean air, right? But once we show the hypocrisy of those laws, once we look at the movie Planet of the Humans by Michael Moore, he produced it, that shows the phony nature and the pollution of these so-called green renewable energy industries, right? So once you see that, that's part of that gospel technology, even if it's done by people who don't have the right answers fully, but they still reveal the truth through art, through a film. And then you use that as a catalyst to get you to say, well, hey, I still want to have clean energy. I don't want to be dependent on Middle Eastern wars for oil for my kids and grandkids and great grandkids. I don't want to have pollution. I don't want to have, this type of way of looking at things. I want to innovate. I want to make the world more beautiful. I want to make the world beautiful without using a single tax dollar or using subsidy or regulation or carbon credits or stupid stuff from the World Economic Forum and all those jokers. No, we're going to do it the real way. We're going to do it with innovation, and we're going to rethink foundations of how to make energy and get to work, right? And that's kind of like a very, very simple explanation for something that's very complicated and takes a lot of skill and takes a lot of talent. And you may not be someone who wants or has any interest in being an electrical engineer or a chemical engineer or, working in physics and so forth. But you can celebrate and you can promote pioneering voices who are doing stuff in these spaces. And I know there's fakes in this space too, but there's tons and tons of fakes in the media propped up establishment green energy companies as well. So you just have to have discernment. You have to know how the world works. You have to know how atoms work. I check, and if you're curious, check out Dr. Yu's work on aneighborschoice.com. Our physicist friend. You go on Science and You, our section there, and you can read all about or watch all about the different things that we explore with Dr. Yu, and he gives insights into looking at physics with a fresh perspective. And I know it's not what the textbooks say, but who cares about what the textbooks say? If they're wrong about something, we're just going to tell you the truth. It's okay to have groupthink, but when it's wrong and it's holding people back for decades and decades, because there could be answers right under our noses, right? There could be answers right under our noses if we step back and say, maybe the atoms don't work the way we thought they worked, the way we, and I understand this is like going into the weeds here, but I'm trying to show you that I'm not giving you platitudes here. I'm trying to take a principle and then give you applications about how to put shoes on that idea, right? So that you can embody it, or you can help celebrate or promote or fund. Maybe there's crowdfunding opportunities for people doing low temperature nuclear energy. Maybe there's, stuff out there that I know there's tons of stuff out there that I'm not aware of, and I'd like to know more about it. In the future, I plan to do more interviews with pioneering engineers, the Nikola Teslas of our time, who are doing great stuff to make our world better. And that's what we do when we imitate Jesus. That's why Rene Girard is famous for saying, the anthropologist says that we didn't, stop burning witches because we discovered the scientific method. We discovered the scientific method because we stopped burning witches, meaning it was an ethical kind of transformation that took place slowly in those cultures that preceded the development of the scientific method. In our mythology that we still teach today, although the postmodern folks and the critical theory people are attacking it too, so it may not last long, this mythology. But in our mythology of modern Enlightenment era thinking, we say, scientific method is what brought us out of the dark ages of religious thinking. But what Rene Girard shows is that it's actually the Christian story. Even though church people are burning people at the stake, they're doing so in grievous error, in grave error, in grave disobedience to the standard of the name that they claim to be representing. And it slowly loses its power and efficacy and effectiveness because it doesn't bind people together, because people say, you know what? God desires mercy, not sacrifice. Jesus says, forgive them, Father, they don't know what they're doing. Jesus says, do not resist evil with violence. How can we burn this person to make the plague go away? And it doesn't happen necessarily in a logical sense the way I'm explaining it, right? But it's a feeling thing, right? It's a story thing. And that's why the gospel stories are a kind of technologies. They kind of slowly muck up our ability to hide our violence from ourselves. And they get us to come into a space mentally where we can say, you know what, maybe we don't do the burning of the witch thing for the plague. Maybe it's time for us to examine what the heck that thing is that's growing on that dead body right there with the black plague. Maybe that we can get like a piece of glass and it will allow us to see it closer. Maybe we'll invent a magnifying glass and it'll allow us to see what the heck is growing on that black plague victim's nose or whatever. And so that's where it's a slowing down, a moving away of collective violence, a moving away of preemptive violence as our knee-jerk solution for problems and stress, and saying, how do we think about these things with evidence, with testing, with skin in the game, with courage? Because it takes courage. See, it takes courage to say, hey, we can solve this disease without burning our scapegoats, our witches. Because people get mad at you when you do that. That's why people get mad at you when you don't go along with their hatred for Donald Trump. As I tell you all the time, I am farther apart. Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump are closer politically together than I am to either of them, right? But still, if you don't go along with the hate machine that is promulgated by the corporate press and their, cartel friends and social media, then you're anathema to them. It's that same thing. And that's why courage is one of the things that we need the most. Because people don't want to get tarred with, I don't want that Trump brand on me, nobody wants, if you feel like someone's being scapegoated. And then the other problem we deal with is that when you say that Trump is the scapegoat of DC, binary thinking makes people say, well, that means you like everything he does. No, it doesn't. But that's what government school education, that's what sloppy consumerist mindset breeds, just sloppy thinking. So how do you cut through all that? Tell stories. Tell stories. Facts are good, but human beings are not moved by just facts and statistical boom, 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 boom. You have to tell a story. Tell the story of the victims of Barack Obama's drone strike campaign so that people can start to say, hey, wait a second, why are we idolizing this? Tell the story of people who were locked up by Biden's crime bill that he used to get into the office today. Tell the story of people like Cherie Peoples, a black woman who's a mother of a daughter who has sickle cell anemia. She misses too many days of government schooling, and Kamala Harris makes sure all of her little crony press is sitting there when she comes and trots out Cherie Peoples in handcuffs and arrests her for her daughter missing too many days of school. See, it's those stories, whether fiction or nonfiction, when they're told beautifully, those are the things that changes people's hearts, changes cultures, and gets people to wake up from their collective delusion that Jesus said they do not know what they're doing. I hope this is making sense for you folks. Let's take a quick break and we'll return on A Neighbor's Choice. Hello, this is David Gornoski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Some out-of-the-area law firms advertise that they are the largest. Do you think large firms help your case? Possibly, but your case will receive personal care from local attorneys Catania and Catania. They are family-owned, Tampa Bay attorneys representing clients who have experienced auto and motorcycle accidents. Your case with Catania and Catania will seek to get a settlement in your favor expeditiously. Catania and Catania, serving Tampa Bay families for over 28 years. Referrals on request. Get the local law firm that will care for your case from beginning to end. They don't get paid if you don't get paid. Catania and Catania, putting families first. Car accident, motorcycle accident, call the local attorneys. Catania and Catania. Offices Tampa. Not attorney spokesperson.
Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Lang, board-certified optometric physician and certified nutritional specialist, host of popular talk show Ask the Doctor. I've researched and developed an amazing new omega-3 product that you'll see incredible results with. It's called Fortify Super Omega-3 Max. I had one of the top Norwegian omega-3 research teams in conjunction with myself and Fortify Vitamins aid in the development of this advanced omega-3. This product is the most potent and purest triglyceride form omega-3 in the United States today. Omega-3 is great for all aspects of your health and well-being, especially in this unprecedented, challenging time. I am giving a 25% discount with promo code RADIO during this viral pandemic. Go to my website, fortify.com. That's FORTIFEYE. Remember the EYE in Fortify. That's fortify.com. Enter the promo code RADIO to receive the 25% discount.
David Gornoski here. A Neighbor's Choice is back. So, a lot of great comments again on our YouTube stream. You want to join the YouTube conversation where we can engage with you and read your questions and comments on live radio and our podcast here. And Luca, a commenter says, great show thus far, David. The rationalists don't realize that by citing their facts, statistics, and graphs, they are engaging in storytelling in the same way a Hindu would cite Ganesh as a cause. They haven't escaped what they see as the vortex of superstition by citing facts. They are very much still engaging in storytelling. It is just the institutionally sanctioned one. Yeah, it's a very good point. And so there is no neutral ground. There is no neutral, truly, objective ground that people can stand outside of all worldview and storytelling and myth making. And what the Gospels do is they provide us a way to deconstruct myth without being self-righteous and zealous. That's why the Bible includes the anthology of the Old Testament, so you can see humans grasping and failing and wrestling with what does it mean to be human, what does it mean to know God, what does it mean to be moral and right and good, what does it mean to live a beautiful life, what does it mean to be whole, how do we deal with haters and rivals and horrible people, psychopaths, stuff like that, right? It deals with all that. How do we deal with envy? How do we deal with covetousness? And it shows people making mistakes, failing and falling apart, but picking themselves back up and growing through humanity. Not getting it perfect, but still pushing forward. So yes, we have to understand that. And so, there's this idea, you got to tell a story that's beautiful. But I still wrestle with this, because sometimes you tell a beautiful story and people don't get it. And then I want to be, maybe that's just my, proselytizing side of me or something. It's like, I still want to add principles. So now you've watched this beautiful movie that moves you to see in solidarity with the victim. But I still want to give you some principles to take away, because I feel like sometimes, if it's story only, without some principles to kind of ground a little back into reality, sometimes people go off into crazy directions, just like what they did with the Gospels, right? I mean, we have communism is a perfect example of that. Marxism is a perfect example of that. Is you hear the story of the Gospels and you go off on this wild goose chase with violence and everything, and it's this crazy stuff, and you're like, whoa, we should have explained the principles a little bit better. And the reason why we didn't is because the church was so focused so much on the theological side of the gospel that they missed the anthropological side of the gospel, and they missed, how to ground the story of Jesus in a way that would challenge their own allegiances to institutions and myth-making and superstitions and groupthink in their own time. But see, to do that would be pretty remarkable, because we can't even do that to this day. So it's kind of expecting people from 1,000 years ago or whatever who had the church to fully understand the full implications of something that we today don't fully even get. Even those of us who say that we're proficient in reading the Bible and so forth, we miss it, because we always take the Bible and we disembody it from Jesus's life. If you tell people to imitate Jesus, I've had people say, well, you're not Jesus, so you can't imitate Jesus. It's like, well, what are you saying? Is Jesus some kind of like Pokemon that you put him in your pocket and you pull him out and he fights your battles for you, but he's just basically another pagan god? That's unfortunately how a lot of folks who think they're Christian fans or fans of Jesus, that's how they treat Jesus, like an object. They objectify Jesus. You know how we're not supposed to objectify human beings? Well, people objectify Jesus. They turn him into an object. Well, Jesus is my religion. I have so many folks, oh, you got to be Protestant. Oh, you got to be this Catholic, you got to be Orthodox, and they get so caught up on my team's right because they want to grasp something. They want something tangible. I got it. It's in my pocket. I got it. Right? And making Jesus the subject of your life, that's a little harder to do tangible grasping of, right? Because you can't objectify that, because that's hard. It's hard to love your neighbor. It's hard to love your neighbor. It's much harder to love your enemy. It's hard to do that. That we have mirror neurons that get caught up in aggression, and someone's mean and hateful to us and they belittle us and we want to go back. It's hard to stop that. That's really hard stuff. And so we're like, okay, yeah. All that stuff about Jesus' embodied life, that's just because he's Superman, he's Hercules, but I'm just going to say uncle to Hercules and then go about being a jerk, voting for wars and torture and banker bailouts and minimum wage hikes and economic regulations and rigged fake trade deals and Federal Reserve and all this nonsense because I go to Jesus and I say uncle to the right Hercules god in the sky, and that's a perversion of what Jesus was doing. It's a total joke, right? It's an objectification of Jesus rather than making Jesus' example your subject of your life, the subject of what you're embodying in your life. A lot of Christians make Jesus about, basically like Descartes. I think blank, therefore I am a Christian. I think blank, therefore I am a Christian. I think this church is the right church, therefore I am a Christian. I think this doctrine is correct, therefore I am a Christian. I think Calvinism is correct. I think Arminianism is correct. I think, whatever is correct. I think it's infant baptism. I think it's adult baptism, right? I think it's total depravity. I think it's partially depraved. All these little doctrines. I think blank, therefore I am Christian. That's Cartesian stuff. When the Bible is much more like Shakespeare. Watch out for the critical theory people. They'll get mad at that. Well, more like Shakespeare was more inspired by the biblical way of looking at humanity, which is to be or not to be. The idea of becoming is what we're all about. We're becoming. The human species is becoming more and more aware of what Jesus has tried to explain to us. This is a process. And we can do it the easy way or we can do it the hard way. And the hard way is to just delude ourselves with word games. That's the hard way because it just makes us fall apart into tribalism and hate and poverty and misery, And we get so stuck on, we've got to hold on to our little politicians. Those are our little scapegoat gods. We worship them for stuff they didn't do, and we blame them for stuff that they did do or didn't do. But whatever they are, they're a distraction. Because popularity contest is not how you solve the world's problems. You solve the world's problems by taking up your cross and following Jesus. Jesus said you were going to do greater things than him. Did you know that? You will do greater things than Jesus. You can. A lot of Christians don't want to hear that. But then they're not hearing Jesus, are they? Jesus said you'll do greater things than me. What's that look like? Was he being cute again? No. Everything Jesus says, he means. But so much institutional religion is like, don't look at that. Just do your little ritual, stuff, which is all fine. Ritual is important. It's important to not act like you're above ritual. Ritual is a humble thing. Liturgy is a work that helps us perform things. I have a high regard for liturgy. But if you don't take it seriously and make Jesus the subject of your life, you'll be lost. You'll be lost in confusion. When the storms of life come, you'll be lost. You'll be scared. But if you learn to imitate Jesus, then you can walk on water. You can walk on water in life. You can do something better than that. If you learn to imitate Jesus, you can create an ability perhaps maybe to have anti-gravity. Not have to walk on water, but actually fly off to new galaxies, new planets, right? But you can only do that if you learn to let go of the matrix of violence, learn to let go of the preemptive coercion, and do it in a way that's guided by love and joy. Because this is a beautiful world, and it was made for your delight. It was made for your creativity. It was made for you to unleash the human potential you have in you in the imitation of Jesus, the master of history. Email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. It's always great to have you. I'm David Gornoski. Godspeed.